Good morning and welcome to our today's English lesson. And in our today's English lesson, I'm going to talk about prepositions. Like I've never talked about prepositions before, so I'd like to talk about prepositions. And just like nouns or just like verbs, just like adjective, somebody may ask you what is an adjective or what is a noun or what is a verb. So what is a preposition? What is a preposition? Prepositions are words that show the relationship between a noun or a pronoun with another word in ascendant, So I say a preposition is a word that shows the relationship between a noun and a pronoun with another word in ascendant, Examples of preposition I have in, on, for, by, since, under, into, beside. You can have between. You can have between. You can have on top of. So they show the relationship between a noun and another word in ascendant, Now, I'm not going to talk about types of preposition because we have different types of preposition. Like we have symbol preposition, compound prepositions, we have phrase prepositions. But I'm going to talk about prepositions of time. Specifically, I'm going to talk about prepositions of transport. And then I'm also going to talk about prepositions of Prepositions of time. Because I've realized that when you people are making sentences, especially in your composition, you don't know when to use a preposition of a transport or prepositions of transport, especially in and on, and you also don't know how to use prepositions of Prepositions of time. So without further ado, let's talk about prepositions of transport. Now, prepositions of transport are by, in, and on. Prepositions of transport are by, in, and on. Everybody is in a position to identify a preposition of transport. But the problem is, do you know how to use the preposition of transport? And leave alone using preposition of transport by. Many of you can hack that. People can get this. And we are supposed to use to have a sentence and then use the preposition of transport by. But now, we come here, when it comes to preposition in or on, most of us do not know where to differentiate in or on, when to use in or on as a preposition of transport, Now, we are going to talk about preposition of transport by. Number one is preposition of transport by. This one is not specific. Like if I say specific, like it does not pinpoint on a certain meaning of transport, Now, what you have to note is that a preposition of transport by does not use articles are, an, a, and they. This is what I mean. It is wrong to say I went to school. It is wrong to say I traveled. It is wrong to say I traveled by a bus. It is wrong to say I traveled by what? By a bus. Now, why? Because article by, because preposition by as a preposition of transport does not take article a, an, and they. So it is correct to say I traveled. It is correct to say I traveled by what? It's correct to say I traveled by bus. So you can say you traveled by car, for example. We can say you traveled by car. We can say you traveled by bus. We can say you travel by a taxi, or we can also say you travel by boat. You travel by ship. You can say car, bus. You travel by ship. Or we can also use by as a preposition of transport. We can also use by as a preposition of transport, especially if we are talking about the environment in which you travel, the environment in which you travel. Example, you travel by sea. You can say I traveled by sea. You can say I traveled by land, or I traveled by air. So if you are talking about, if you want to use by as a preposition of transport, you can use it in these three ways. Actually, there are three ways. especially if you are not specific, you can say by car. You can say you travel by bus. You can say I travel by taxi. You can say I travel by what? I travel by ship. You can say I travel by plane. But you can also use by as a mean of as a preposition of transport to talk about the environment in which you did what? The environment in which you travel. Now, when we talk about environment, was it by air? Was it by land, or was it by sea? Was it by land, or was it by air? Was it by air? You can also use by as a preposition of transport to talk about the surface area. If I talk of the surface area, surface area of the surface area of the mean of transport. For example, you can say by rail. You can say by road. Or you can say by rail, you can say by road, or you can say by water. You can say by water. So these ones are surfaces. These ones are the environment. Or you can use by as a preposition of transport. If you are not specific, just remember it does not take article a, it does not take article an, or they. So for example, I'm going to say I traveled. I'm going to say I traveled by air. I traveled by air to Mumbai. I traveled by air to Mumbai. Mumbai starts with a capital M because it is a proper noun. Names of people and places are proper nouns, so they begin with capital letters. You can say I traveled by air to Mumbai. Or I'm going to say, or I can also say I traveled. You can say I traveled by road, or I can say I traveled by road to Nairobi. I can say I traveled by road to Nairobi. So you can have, if you want to use by, you can use by with surface area, not the surface area in mathematics, like surface area of the mean of transport, E.g., if it is a rail, then it was by train. If it is road, it can be by car, or it can be by bus. If it is water, it can be by ship. Now, you can use rail, road, and water, which are surface area, when you using article what? Article by, using preposition of transport by. You can also use by to talk about what? The environment in which you travel. The environment is sea. You can have land, you can have air, you can have air. So it is correct to say I travel by rail to Mombasa, or you can say I travel by road to Mombasa, or I can say I traveled by air to Mumbai, and air is the environment. So I've said if you want to use article by as a preposition of transport, use it by what? We can say, so you say by surface. You can say surface area. You can say environment. You can also say when you're talking about the what? When you're talking about the environment. Example of environment, you can have sea, you can have land, and then you can have air. When I talk of the surface on which you travel, we can say road. So you can say road, you can say rail, or you can say what? You can say water. So you say I travel by road, I travel. This one is also going to take by. This one is also going to take by. You can say by road, by rail, or by what? By water. You can say by sea, by land, or by air. Now, if it comes, if this exam, especially this when it comes in the exam, I've seen this. They say I traveled. For example, I traveled to Nanyuki. I traveled to Nanyuki. Dash. I traveled to Nanyuki. Dash. Let's say dash air. You say I traveled to Nanyuki by air. You can say I traveled to Nanyuki by what? By air. So means of transport, the environment or the surface area, take preposition by. Take preposition by as a preposition of what? As a preposition of transport. As a preposition of transport. Now, we are going to talk about how to use preposition on as a preposition of transport, and how to use in as a preposition of what? As a preposition of transport. Now, you can come here and we are going to talk about preposition on, and make sure if how to use preposition on as a mean of transport, you listen keenly, because most learners cannot hack how to use preposition on as a mean of transport. Now, how is the on as a mean of transport different from in as a mean of transport? In on as a mean of transport, just make sure if it is on, then you can stand, you can stand or walk, using the walk in the mean of the transport. In the mean of what? In the mean of transport, in the mean of transport. Like you can stand, or you can walk in the mean of transport, in the mean of transport. For example, I am going on takes article a, and can take what? Article the, article they. So you can take article a, can take article an, and it can take article a. Just remember, if you want to use on as your mean of transport, it means you can stand or you can walk in the mean of transport, in the mean of transport. For example, on a bus, because you can walk. Sindio? On a ferry, because you can walk on a ferry. Sindio? You can say on an aeroplane, because you can stand and walk on an aeroplane. You can stand or walk in what? You can stand or walk in an aeroplane, Now, if you can stand and walk, then make sure you use on as your mean of what? As your mean of transport, especially if they have article a and an, or article they. Because you come to a preposition on as a preposition of transport, it takes a, an, and what? It takes a, an, and they. Now, how different is on? What is the difference between on and in? When you use on, just make sure you can stand, walk, or stand or walk. You can stand or walk in the mean of the transport. For example, on a bus, you can stand on a bus, right? You can say on a ferry, you can stand and walk in a ferry. On an aeroplane, you can stand and walk what? On an aeroplane, You can say, where else can you stand? Which mean of transport can you also stand and use it? You can say on a train, because you can stand and walk on a train. It is also correct to say on a bicycle. I go to school on a bicycle. So if you have a bicycle, you take what? On preposition of on. You say I go to school on a bicycle. And then you cannot say I go to school by bicycle. It is wrong. Bicycle does not take preposition by. But it is correct to say I went to school, or I go to school on a bicycle. So you have on a bicycle as also a preposition of what? You can use on, and remember you can also use on foot. I go to school on foot. So if you have foot, you have on. It is also wrong to say by foot. It's also wrong to say by what? By bicycle. You say on a bicycle or on foot. So if you want to use on as a preposition of transport, just make sure that when you are using on as a preposition of transport, make sure that when you are using on, that mean of transport that you are using on with, you can stand. Like you can stand and walk. Now, we come to preposition of transport in. The preposition of transport what? In. So if you want to use the preposition of transport in, make sure that if you want in to be your answer, then you can't walk or stand. What you do is you sit inside. You sit what? You sit only inside. Like you are supposed to sit inside. You can't walk or you can't stand. Now, you think of the means of transport in which you can't stand or walk. Are we getting that? So if you want to use this mean of transport on, or you can say, you say not on. Say on a bicycle, you can say on foot, on a bus, you can say on a train, on a ferry, on a ship. But look at the means of transport where you can't stand. For example, I'm going to say, I traveled. For example, I'm going to say, I traveled in a car. I traveled in what? In a car. Yes. Can you stand and walk in a car? Like a car. Can you stand or can you walk in a car? No. So if you can't stand or walk, then you use preposition what? Preposition in. Preposition in. I traveled in a car. Can you stand or walk in a truck? So you say in a truck. You can say in a helicopter. Just remember I said in an aeroplane, but you on an aeroplane, but I'm going to say in a helicopter. In a helicopter. So I traveled to Nanyuki by aeroplane, not by aeroplane, but I'm going to say in a helicopter. In a helicopter. Why? If you look at the make of a helicopter, then you cannot stand or walk in it. You cannot stand or walk in it. If you look at a truck, when it is in motion, there is no way you are going to stand and walk in it. When you look at a car, you cannot stand or walk in it. Some books will agree, some books will not agree. Like you'll find a book which says on a bus or in a bus. But just remember, neck marks what? On a bus, not in a bus. So you have I travel in a car, like you can't stand and walk in a car. You can't stand and walk in a truck when it is in motion. You can't stand in a helicopter. So I'm going to say in a truck, in a helicopter, or in a car. But when you want to use on as a preposition of transport, just remember that on you can stand and walk. For example, you can say on an aeroplane, because you can stand and walk in an aeroplane. You are going to say on a ship, on a ferry, because you can stand and walk on a ship or a ferry. But you are going to say in a truck or in a car or in a helicopter. Those means of transport that you cannot walk in them, especially when they are in motion. And if I say when they are in motion, I mean when they are moving. So prepositions of transport by, in, and on. Make sure you make notes. Make sure while you are listening, you make notes. Once you've made the notes, I'm going to leave questions so that you can attempt. Next, we are going to have prepositions of transport. Prepositions of transport for and since. We are going to talk of how to use for in a sentence and how to use since in a sentence. So you have number one. Let's start with for. For shows a period of time. We can say a period of time, or we can say a duration of time. Like for, you shows what? Shows number or numerals. Example, you can say for several days. She's been absent for several days in school. It shows a period of time, several days, which several is a quantifier. So I say for several days, and several means not more than 3, but not less than 2. So for several, you say several days. You can say for 50. You can say for 50 years. You can say for many days. You can say for many what? For many days. That is, if you want to use for as a preposition of time, just make sure that you have a period of time, or you can say a duration of time. Like number, it can be how many or how much. And if I say how many, it means countable. And if I say how much, it means what? Uncountable. So you have for several days. You can have for 50 years, which is countable. You can say for many days, which is not specific. It is a quantifier. So you can say for many days. You can say for 50 years or for several days. Just make sure that if you want to use for as a preposition of time, it should give you a period of time or a duration of time. How many or how much. You can have preposition since as a preposition of transport. It shows a point in time. If I say I point in time, what I mean is the action began at which specific time. For example, you can say I have been in class 8 for 12 months. I have been in class 8 for 12 months. You've been in class 8 for 12 months. That is 12, which is number. But you are going to say, I have been in class 8. I have been in class 8. I've been in class 8 since January. I've been in class 8 since January, and I'm writing January with a capital J because it is a proper noun. Months of the year, days of the week are proper nouns. They begin with capital letters. So I have been in class 8 since January. So since, it shows a point in time, like from when have you been in class 8? In class 8. But 4 gives us a period of the time that you've been in class 8. You've been in class 8. We can say Kenya has been independent for 54 years, but Kenya has been independent since 1963. So you say since Kenya has been, example, I can say Kenya has been independent. Kenya has been independent. Kenya has been independent since 1963. But I'm going to say Kenya has been independent for 54 years. If that is, it tallies. Like if you get 2020 minus 1963, you get 24. I don't know if it's true. So you say Kenya has been independent since 1963. A point in time. Like from when has Kenya been independent? But if you want to use 4, just you'll ask yourself how much or how many? How many? And if you say how much or how many, then you are in a position to count or give the quality or quantity. I'm going to give out the questions. Just make sure you attempt and then you send the answers. Have a good day.